Namaste. So today I'm going to read Book 9, Chapter 48, the Antidote of Manasa in the Maha Devi Bhagavatam. Hari Om Tat Sat. Narayana said, O Narada, I will now speak of the dhyanam and the method of worship of Sri Devi Manasa. As stated in the Samaveda, here I meditate on the Devi Manasa, whose color is fair like that of the white champaka flower, whose body is decked all over with jewel ornaments, whose clothing is purified by fire, whose sacred thread is the Naga's serpent, who is full of wisdom, who is the foremost of Jnanins, who is the presiding deity of the Siddhas, who herself is a Siddha, and who bestows Siddhis to all. O Muni, thus meditating on her, one should present her flowers, scents, ornaments, offerings of food, and various other articles, pronouncing the principal seed mantra, O Narada, the 12-lettered Siddha mantra, to be mentioned below. Yields to the bhaktas their desires like the kalpa tree. Now the radical mantra is stated in the Vedas, Om Hrim Shrim Klim Aim Manasa Devye Swaha. Repetition of this 5 lakhs of times yields success to one who repeats. He who attains success in this mantra gets unbounded name and fame in this world. Poison becomes nectar to him, and he himself becomes famous like Dhanvantari. Narada, if anybody bathes on any Sankranti day, when the sun enters from one sign to another, and going to a private room, hidden room, invokes the Devi Manasa Ishana, and worships her with devotion, or makes sacrifices of animals before the Devi, on the 5th day of the 4th night, he becomes certainly wealthy, endowed with sons and name and fame. Thus I have described to you the method of worship of Manasa Devi. Now hear the antidote of the Devi as I heard from Dharma. In olden days, men became greatly terrified on earth from snakes and took refuge of Kashyapa, the supreme amongst the Munis. The Maharishi Kashyapa became very afraid. He then, with Brahma and by his command, composed a mantra following the principal motto of the Vedas. While composing this mantra, he intensely thought of the Devi, the presiding deity of that mantra. Through the power of his tapasya and through the mental power, the Devi Manasa appeared and was named so. And she was produced from the sheer influence of mind. On being born, the girl went to the abode of Shankara in Kailasa and began to worship him and chant hymns to him with devotion. For 1,000 divine years, the daughter of Kashyapa served Mahadeva, and he became pleased. He gave her the great knowledge, made her recite the Samaveda, and bestowed to her the 8-lettered Krishna mantra, which is like the kalpa tree. Om Shrim Hrim Klim Krishnaye Nama was the 8-lettered mantra. She got from him the Kavacha, amulet auspicious to the 3 worlds, the method of worship, and all the rules of Parushcharana, repetition of the name of a deity attended with burnt offerings, oblations, etc., and went by his command to perform the Puskara, very hard austerities. There she worshipped Krishna for 3 yugas. Shri Krishna then appeared before her. On seeing Krishna, immediately the girl, worn out by austerities, worshipped him, and she was also worshipped by Shri Krishna. Shri Krishna granted her the boon, let you be worshipped throughout the world, and departed. With Narada, she was thus first worshipped by the Supreme Spirit, the Devi Krishna. Secondly by Shankara, thirdly by the Maharishi Kashyapa, and the Devas. Then she was worshipped by the Gurus, Manus, Nagas, and men, and she became widely renowned in the three worlds. Kashyapa gave her over to the hands of Jarat Karu Muni. Jarat Karu Muni, at the request of the Brahmin Kashyapa, the Muni Jarat Karu married her. After the marriage, one day, being tired with his long work of tapasya, Jarat Karu laid his head on the lap and loins of his married wife and fell fast asleep. Gradually, the evening came in, the sun set. Then Manasa thought, if my husband fails to perform the sandhya, the daily duty of the brahmanas, he would be involved in the sin of Brahmahatya. It is definitely stated in the Sastras that if any brahmana does not perform his sandhya in the morning and in the evening, he becomes wholly impure, and the sins, Brahmahatya and other crimes, come down on his head. Arguing thus these thoughts in her mind, as commanded by the Vedas, at last she awakened her husband, who then got up from his sleep. The Muni Jarat Karu said, O chaste one, I was sleeping happily. Why have you thus interrupted my sleep? All his vows turn out useless. Who injures her husband? Her tapas, fastings, gifts, and other meritorious works all come to vain. Who do things unpleasant to her husband? If she worships her husband, she is said to have worshipped Sri Krishna. For the sake of fulfilling the vows of a chaste woman, Hari himself becomes their husbands. All sorts of charities, gifts, all sacrifices, fastings, practicing all the virtues, keeping the truth, worshipping all the devas, nothing can turn out equal to even 1/16th part of serving one's husband. She ultimately goes with her husband to the region of Vaikuntha, who serves her husband in this holy land, Bharata. She comes certainly of a bad family who does unpleasant acts to her husband and who uses unpleasant words to her husband. She goes to the Kumbhipaka hell as long as the sun and moon lasts, and then she becomes born as a Chandali without husband and son. Speaking thus, Jarat Karu, the best of the Munis, became angry and his lips began to tremble. Seeing this, the best Manasa, shivering with fear, addressed her husband. I have broken your sleep and awakened you. Fearing you might miss your time of sandhya, I have committed an offense. Punish me as you think. I know that a man goes to the Kalasutra hell as long as the sun and moon last in this world. Who throws an obstacle when any man eats, sleeps, or enjoys with the opposite sex? O Narada, thus saying, the Devi Manasa fell down at the feet of her husband and cried again and again. On the other hand, knowing the Muni angry and ready to curse her, the son came there with Sandhya Devi, and he humbly spoke to him with fear. O Bhagavan, seeing me going to set and fearing that you may miss dharma, your chaste wife has awakened you. O Brahmin, now I am also under your refuge, forgive me. O Bhagavan, you should not curse me. The more so, a Brahmana's heart is as tender as the fresh butter. The anger of a Brahmin lasts only half the twinkling of an eye. Ksan, when a Brahmana becomes angry, he can burn all this world and can make a new creation. So who can possess an influence like a Brahmana? Brahmin is a part of Brahma. He is shining day and night with the tejas of Brahma. A Brahmana meditates always on the external light of Brahma. O Narada, hearing the words of the son, the Brahmin became satisfied and blessed him. The son also went to his own place, thus blessed daily. To keep his promise, the Brahmin, Jarat Karu, quitted Manasa. She became very sorry and began to cry aloud with pain and anguish. Being very much distressed by the then danger, she remembered her Ishtadevata, Mahadeva. Brahma, Hari, and her father, Maharishi Kashyapa. On the very instant when Manasa remembered Sri Krishna, the Lord of the Gopis, Mahadeva, Brahma, and Maharishi Kashyapa appeared there. Then, seeing his own desired deity, Sri Krishna, superior to Prakriti, beyond the attributes, Jaratkaru began to praise him and bowed down to him repeatedly. Then bowing down to Mahadeva, Brahma, and Kashyapa, he inquired why they had come there. Brahma then instantly bowed down at the lotus feet of Hrishikesa and spoke in befitting words, "At that time, if the Brahmin Jaratkaru leaves at all his legal wife, devoted to her own dharma, she should first of all have a son born of her to fulfill his dharma. O Muni, any man can quit his wife after he has impregnated her and got a son. But if, without having a son, he leaves his wife, then all his merits are lost, as all water leaks out of a sieve or a strainer." O Narada, hearing thus the words of Brahma, the Muni, Jaratkaru, by his yogic power, recited a mantra and touched the navel of Manasa, spoke to her, "O Manasa, a son will be born in your womb, self-controlled, religious, and best of the Brahmanas. That son will be fiery, energetic, renowned, well qualified, the foremost of the knowers of the Vedas, a great Gyanin, and the best of the yogis. That son is a true son indeed, who uplifts his family, who is religious and devoted to Hari. At his birth, all the Pitris dance with great joy. The wife is a true wife who is devoted to her husband, good-natured and sweet-speaking, and she is religious. She is the mother of sons. She is the woman of the family, and she is the preserver of the family. She is the true friend, indeed the giver of one's desired fruits, who imparts devotion to Hari. That father is a true father who shows the way to devotion to Hari, and she is the true mother, through whom this entering into wombs ceases forever, yea, forever. That sister is the true kind, sister from whom the fear of death vanishes. That guru is the guru who gives the Vishnu mantra and the true devotion to Vishnu. That guru is the real bestower of knowledge, who gives the jnanam by which Krishna is meditated, in whom this whole universe, moving and non-moving from the Brahma down to a blade of grass, is appearing and disappearing. There is no doubt in this. What knowledge can be superior to that of Shri Krishna? The knowledge derived from the Vedas or from the sacrifices or from any other source is not superior to the service to Shri Krishna. The devotion and knowledge of Shri Hari is the essence of all knowledge. All else is vain and mockery. It is through this real knowledge that this bondage from this world is severed. But the Guru who does not impart this devotion and knowledge to Shri Hari, is not the real Guru. Rather, he is an enemy that leads one to bondage. Verily, he kills his disciple when he does not free him. He can never be called a Guru, father, or friend who does not free his disciple from the pains in the various wombs and from the pains of death. Verily, he can never be called a friend who does not show the way to the undecaying Shri Krishna, the source of the highest bliss. So, O chaste one, you better worship that undecaying Parabrahma Shri Krishna, who is beyond the attributes. O beloved, I have left you out of a pretense. Please excuse me for this. The chaste women are always forgiven. Never they become angry because they are born of sattva gunas. Now I go to Puskara for tapasya. You better go wherever you like. Those who have no desire have their minds always attached to the lotus feet of Shri Krishna. O Narada, hearing the words of Jaratkaru, The Devi Manasa became very much distressed and bewildered with great sorrow. Tears began to flow from her eyes. She then humbly spoke to her dearest husband, "O Lord, I have not committed any such offense as you leave me altogether when I have thus broken your sleep. However, kindly show thyself to me when I will recollect you. The bereavement of one's friend is painful. More than that is the bereavement of a son. Again, one's husband is dearer than 100 sons, so the bereavement of one's husband is the heaviest of all. To women, the husband is the most beloved of all earthly things, hence he is called Priya, i.e. dear, as the heart of one who has only one son is attached to that son, as the heart of a Vaishnava is attached to Sri Hari, as the mind of one-eyed man, as the mind of one-eyed man to his one eye, as the mind of the thirsty is attached to water, as the mind of the hungry is attached to food, as the mind of the passionate is attached to lust, as the mind of a thief is attached to the properties of others, as the mind of a lewd man to his prostitute, as the mind of the learned is attached to the sastras, as the mind of a trader is attached to his trade, so the mind of chaste women are attached to their husbands. Thus saying, Manasa fell down at the feet of her husband. Jarat Karu, the ocean of mercy, then took her for a moment on his lap and drenched her body with tears from his eyes. The Devi Manasa, too, distressed at the bereavement of her husband, also drenched the lap of the Muni with tears from her eyes. Some time after, the true knowledge arose in them, and they both became free from fear. Jarat Karu then enlightened his wife and asked her to meditate on the lotus feet of Shri Krishna, the Supreme Spirit, repeatedly. Thus saying, she went away for his tapasya. Manasa, distressed with sorrow, went to his Ishtadeva, Mahadeva, on Kailasa. The auspicious Shiva and Parvati both consoled her with knowledge and advice. Some days after, on an auspicious day, and on an auspicious moment, she gave birth to a son born in part of Narayana, and as the guru of the yogis and as the preceptor of the Jnanins. When the child was in mother's womb, he heard the highest knowledge from the mouth of Mahadeva. Therefore, he was born as a Yogindra and the spiritual teacher of the Jnanins. On his birth, Bhagavan Shankara performed his natal ceremonies and performed various auspicious ceremonies. The Brahmanas chanted the Vedas for the welfare of the child. Various wealth and jewels and kiritas and invaluable gems were distributed by Shankara to the Brahmanas, and Parvati gave 1,00,000 cows and various jewels to others. After some days, Mahadeva taught him the 4 Vedas with their Angas, 6 limbs, and gave him at last the Mrityunjaya mantra. As in Manasa's mind, there reigned the devotion to her husband, the devotion to her Ishtadeva and Guru. The child's name was kept Astika. Astika then got the Maha mantra from Shankara, and by his command went to Puskara to worship Vishnu, the Supreme Spirit. There he practiced tapasya for 3,00,000 divine years, and then he returned to Kailasa to bow down to the great yogi and the Lord Shankara. Then bowing down to Shankara, he remained there for some time when Manasa with her son Astika went to the hermitage of Kashyapa, her father. Seeing Manasa with son, the Maharishi's gladness knew no bounds. He fed innumerable brahmanas for the welfare of the child and distributed lakhs and lakhs of jewels. The joy of Aditi and Diti, the wives of Kashyapa, knew no bounds. Manasa remained there for long time with his son. O child, hear now an antidote on this. One day, due to a bad karma, a Brahmana cursed the king Parikshit, the son of Abhimanyu, one Rishi's son named Shringi, sipping the water of the river Kausiki, cursed thus: when a week expires, the snake Taksaka will bite you, and you will be burnt with the poison of that snake, Taksaka. Hearing this, the king Parikshit, to preserve his life, went to a place solitary where wind can have no access, and he lived there. When the week was over, Dhanvantari saw, while he was going on the road, the snake Taksaka, who was going also to bite the king. A conversation and a great friendship arose between them. Taksaka gave him voluntarily a gem, and Dhanvantari, getting it, became pleasant and went back gladly to his house. The king Parikshit was lying on his bedstead when Taksaka bit the king. The king died soon and went to the next world. The king Janamejaya then performed the funeral obsequies of his father and commenced afterwards the Sharpa Yajna, a sacrifice where the snakes are the victims. In that sacrifice, innumerable snakes gave up their lives by the Brahmateja, the fire of the Brahmins. At this, Taksaka became terrified and took refuge to Indra. The Brahmins then, in a body, became ready to burn Taksaka along with Indra. When Indra and the other devas went to Manasa, Mahindra, bewildered with fear, began to chant hymns to Manasa. Manasa called his own son, Astika, who then went to the sacrificial assembly of the king Janamejaya and begged that the lives of Indra and Taksaka be spared. The king then, at the command of the Brahmanas, granted their lives. The king then completed his sacrifice and gladly gave the dakshinas to the Brahmins, Munis and Devas, collected and went to Manasa and worshipped her separately and chanted hymns to her. Indra went there with the various articles, and he worshipped Manasa with devotion and with great love and care, and he chanted hymns to her, then bowed down before her, and under the instruction of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesa, offered her 16 articles, sacrifices, and various other good and pleasant things. O Narada, thus worshipping her, they all went to their respective places. Thus I have told you the antidote of Manasa. What more do you want to hear? Say. Narada said, O Lord, how did Indra praise her, and what was the method of his worshipping her? I want to hear all this. Narayana said, Indra first took his bath and performing Achmanaya, and becoming pure, he put on a fresh and clean clothing and placed Manasa Devi on a jewel throne. Then reciting the Vedic mantras, he made her perform her bath by the water of the Mandakini, the celestial river Ganges, poured from a jewel jar, and then he made her put on a beautiful clothing, uninflammable by fire. Then he caused sandal paste to be applied to her body all over with devotion, and offered water for washing her feet, and arghya, an offering of grass and flowers and rice, etc., as a token of preliminary worship. First of all, the 6 devatas, Ganesha, sun, fire, Vishnu, Shiva, and Shakti were worshipped. Then, with the 10-lettered mantra, Om Hrim Shrim Manasa Devye Swaha, offered all the offerings to her, stimulated by the god Vishnu. Indra worshipped with great joy the Devi with 16 articles, so very rare to any other person. Drums and instruments were sounded. From the celestial heavens, a shower of flowers were thrown on the head of Manasa. Then, at the advice of Brahma, Vishnu and Mahesa, The Devas and the Brahmanas, Indra, with tears in his eyes, began to chant hymns to Manasa. When his whole body was thrilled with joy, and hairs stood on their ends, Indra said, O Devi Manasa, thou standest the highest amongst the chaste women, therefore I want to chant hymns to thee. Thou art higher than the highest. Thou art most supreme. What I now praise thee, chanting hymns in characterized by the description of one's nature. So it is said by the Vedas, but O Prakriti, I am unable to ascertain and describe thy qualities. Thou art of the nature of Suddha Sattva, higher than the pure Sattva unmixed with any other gunas. Thou art free from anger and malice. The Muni Jaratkaru could not forsake thee. Therefore, it was that he prayed for thy separation before. O chaste one, I have now worshipped thee. Thou art an object of worship as my mother Aditi is. Thou art my sister full of mercy. Thou art the mother full of forgiveness. O Sureshwari, it is through thee that my wife, sons, and my life are saved. I am worshipping thee. Let thy love be increased, O world mother. Thou art eternal. Thy worship is extant everywhere in the universe, yet I worship thee to have extended further and further. Yet I worship thee to have it extended further and further. O mother, those who worship thee with devotion on the Sankranti day of the month of Asudha, or on the Naga Panchami day, or on the Shankranti day of every month, or on every day, they get their sons and grandsons wealth and grains increased and become themselves famous, well gratified, learnt and renowned. If anybody does not worship thee out of ignorance, rather if he censures thee, then he will be bereft of Lakshmi, and he will be always afraid of snakes. Thou art the Griha Lakshmi of all the householders and the Raja Lakshmi of Vaikunta. Bhagavan Jagat Karu, the great Muni, born in part of Narayana, is thy husband. Father Kishapa has created thee mentally by his power of tapas and fire to preserve us. Thou art his mental creation, hence thy name is Manasa. Thou thyself hast become Siddha Yogini in this world by thy mental power. Hence thou art widely known as Manasa Devi in this world and worshipped by all. The Devas always worship thee mentally with devotion. Hence the Pandits call thee by the name of Manasa. O Devi, thou always servest truth, hence thou art the nature of truth. He certainly gets thee who always thinks of thee verily as of the nature of truth. O Narada, thus praising his sister Manasa and receiving from her the desired boon, Indra went back dressed in his own proper dress to his own abode. The Devi Manasa then honored and worshipped everywhere, and thus worshipped by her brother, long lived in her father's house with her son. One day, Surabhi, the heavenly cow, came from Goloka and bathed Manasa with milk and worshipped her with great devotion and revealed to her all the tattva jnanas to be kept very secret. This is now made the current story wherever any lingam suddenly becomes visible. O Narada, thus worshipped by the Devas and Surabhi, the Devi Manasa went to the heavenly regions. O Muni, one gets no fare from snakes who recites this holy stotra composed by Indra and worships Manasa. His family descendants are freed from the fear due to snakes. If anybody becomes Siddha in this stotra, poison becomes nectar to him. Reciting the stotra 5 lakhs of times makes a man Siddha in this stotra, so much so that he can sleep on a bed of snakes and he can ride on snakes. Here ends the 48th chapter on the 9th book on the antidote of Manasa in the Maha Puranam, Srimad Devi Bhagavatam of 18,000 verses by Maharishi Vedvyasa. Om Shanti Mangala Kali Bhadraka. Om Tuya Mata Shanti Shanti.